So I will demonstrate now for all that are online. We have discussed the entities for the mapping, the vector entities. So the base maps are made of images, raster. So basically grids of pixels. Of course, if you zoom in, you will understand what I mean. These are grids of pixels, which are actually this. This is a raster image. Now, on top of it, using our raster images to as a base to create our vector layers that are identifying different features on the surface of a planet. And with this respect, either geomorphological units or geologic units, that depends on the objective of our mapping. And as you see in this image, they can be divided into three main objects and topologies. The first one is point data. So a point entity identified in space by X, Y, and Z. We are using the DTM line or a polyline. So a line or a line which is connected through different vertices, which are the points where the line is changing orientation. And then polygons, of course, are polygons with an area inside. I will demonstrate how to create some of these, but don't worry if you find it complicated. If it's just for you, you need to know this part. But we have then created a software that does all these things for you, and you simply have to worry about mapping. But this is good to know because you can have the need to create them for different reasons, and so it's good to know. So the vector entities can be created with this bar at the top, okay? And with this respect, we have to go to the third button, which is new shapefile layer. Shapefile is basically the conventional name in which in the JS environment are called the vector layers. Shapefiles identify shapes, a point shape, a polyline shape, or a polygon shape. It's commonly used throughout ArcGIS, QGIS, in every JS system. So we have to go
Riccardo, just before you proceed, do you want to create shapefiles or geo packages?
I will go for geo package later because I want.
Okay, that's great. Okay, perfect.
Okay, let's create a new shapefile. If you click, a window pops up with different prompts. The file name, file encoding, blah, blah, blah. So the very first thing that you want to do is to identify the object that you are creating. Actually, you see that you have a button here, the browse button. If you just type the name of the file in here, nothing happens because you need first to select the path, so the folder where you want to save the file. For the sake of this demo, I will go to my desktop, Winter School, and then I will create a new folder, which is called demo folder. And I will save my shapefile here, and we call it point shapefile. You see that the extension, the file extension is .ashp, okay? File encoding, you don't really have to touch it. The geometry type, I want to create a point. So if you use this drop menu, you can select no geometry, point, multi-point, line, string, or polygon. I want to create a point shapefile. We can skip this. The other important thing is this, the reference system. You see that I have here an attention, just a warning sign. It means that here we are using an Earth-based coordinate reference system in degrees of latitude and longitude. Instead, we want to use the same exact coordinate reference system, the CRS of this project. You have to open the drop-down menu and always go to the second option. The first one is the default of QGIS. The second one is always the one of the project you are working on. And the more you have stored, the more options you have. But basically, if you want to create a new shapefile in the coordinate reference system of your project, you have to go to the second option. Go there, and can be basically it. If you want, you can add new fields, but I will show you later what these things are. For the moment, we can simply click OK. And as you see, you will have a point entity here. And if you right click, you can change the styling of your point. If you go to symbology, you see there are different options that you can use. You can change the color, the size, for example, like that. I can change my color. For example, I want to change my color to yellow. I use the color wheel. And that's my point symbol. So how it is saved inside my my demo folder? Let me just go back for a second. This is my demo folder. And inside my demo folder, this is what's created. It's the point shapefile in .shp plus some additional files. All of these have a different function. For example, the DBF is actually a table, a database, in which every point entity that we are going to create when we are placing new points is going to be stored, is actually a table. And inside the table, you can create as many layers as you want, adding different types of information, comments, coordinates, annotations, reference to other files. PRJ is basically the projection system of the points, so the coordinate system. Okay, so these three are all these three files go together. If again you move or you copy or you delete one of these files, this thing is not going to work anymore. So these things are going to stay together. So now let's create also a vector shapefile of a polyline. So again, the third button, we go here, we choose our vector shapefile, and we can create, I will call it polyline just for completeness. Save. Again, this is creating the .shp, but without asking us, it's also creating the other three files that are needed for QGIS and also for all the other GIS systems to precisely locate the shapefile inside the mapping project. Geometry type this time is line string, because it's a polyline. And again, the coordinate reference system is going to be set to the project coordinate reference system. And then we can type OK. So you see that here now, a polyline is created. You see that the symbology is a line. It's not very well visible. But again, we can go to properties, and we can adjust the styling of the line. We can make it thicker. For example, we can increase the stroke, and then we can change the color to something well visible. I will put this for the moment, just because it's well visible against this dark background. But you get the idea. And then you can play with other types of adjustments here. So polyline and the point. So as we saw, we are lacking the polygons. Okay, we have created points, polyline, and then now the polygons. The same. Third button, we save it. We can call it polygons. We can give us the name that we want. Geometry type here is polygon. The last one, coordinate reference system, always the second button. And now I will introduce this field here. So I told you before that the shapefiles go together with a table, a DBF file. A table is made, of course, of different fields, different columns. And in all the rows, identify different objects that we are creating. So if you create a polygon, we have the first row, a second polygon, a second row, third row is a third polygon, and all the columns identify different attributes. We can add an attribute, for example, a column name, which is geologic units or unit. Or actually, since the length is very short, we can call them geo units. The type can be a text, a number, if you want to identify something with a number, decimal number, a date, these are the defaults. This is the length in which inside the table you can populate your field, and then you simply have to click add to field list. You see, we have now a first field, which is ID, which is basically a progressive number identifying all the new features that you are creating when you are adding polygons or points or lines. And this field is another field that we have created. You can click OK. And if we go to the polygons, which is, you see, is identified one with a point, with a line, and then with the square, you right click. Instead of properties, of course, here you can change the color and everything. You can go to this, which is the attribute table, which is actually the content of the DBF file. If you open it, you see that this is a table. It's now empty because we have not created yet any new entities. But you have an ID, which is a progressive number. You will see while I'm starting putting some things on the map, and GeoUnits, which is another field that is going to be populated according to how we decided to call the units inside this crater. So before we go further, you see that I have created points, polygons, and polylines. And this folder starts to be a bit crowded, okay? And this is where the geo package comes in handy. So if you add more and more polygons or polylines, you might end up with the tens or hundreds of files inside the same folder, and it becomes a bit messy. But everything can be stored inside a box in the same. And this box is called geo package, which is this second option here. If you create a new geo package, it's basically a database that contains all the geometry types that we need. We can either create a new one, and then inside that we create points, polylines, polygons, or we can take the three that we have just created and then package them inside the geo package, which is actually a single file with the JPKG extension. And this is what you have here. If you go to the folder of this project, where you add the geologic map of Tognon, Gloria, who you will meet tomorrow, and you open it, you have inside a single file in extension .jpkg. Okay, so just to show you how it works, if I load one of these inside my project, it prompts me a message. It says that I have 3 types of polylines and a polygon. So it says you are loading a geo package, a box containing all these items. Do you want to load them all? Do you want just to load 1 or 2? And I can choose to load all the layers. And now these are all the layers that are loaded. So here you have a polygon, a line work, and another type of line work. And but the very convenient thing is that when you're working in your computer, they are stored within a single file here in GeoPack. These are just auxiliary files that are going to go away once I close my project. But everything can be stored inside the same package. Okay. Now let me remove this. Right click again, remove layer. I will remove these because we are not going to create new ones.
Can I say something, Riccardo?
Yes.
Just because you are removing layers. So one important thing in QGIS is that the actual data you are creating, so the layers, the shape files, the geo packages, the raster, are just linked from the project. So whenever you delete, you say remove layer, you are not actually deleting from your hard drive
Exactly.
the file. So the file will stay there. It might be
Let me
also
show
that,
you.
yeah. Maybe also
so let's
that,
say I will remove the polygons. I remove the layer. No polygons anymore in the project. But if we go inside my demo folder, you see that the polygon is still here. It's not gone. If I want to delete something, I have to go inside the folder or inside, let's say, the folder in my computer and delete physically the shapefile or the geo package to remove permanently the entity. So that means that if I remove by mistake anything inside the project, also if I save the project and I remove things, I can always go back and then reload the polygon shapefile. You see? I can remove everything, but everything is not destroyed. It stays in your computer. It is just not anymore inside your mapping project. Okay.
If it happens that you lose a layer because you do a mistake, you remove it, don't freak out. It's still on your hard drive. Just go look for it, and you can just import it again. And it's not destructive, I believe.
Yes, exactly. And so how to add the new features or new entities? Let's say I want to identify with points a few, I don't know, small, in particular boulders, small boulders, okay? I have a few boulders here. I can use my bookmark that I created before, boulders area, yeah? And then I can drag and navigate. By the way, the drag tool is the hand here. And then I want to mark the position of some boulders here because needed for our trafficability analysis, let's say. So I select here the point, and then there are two ways to do that. One is always your best friend, a right-click button. And here you have toggle editing. But everything can also be done here with this pencil button. It's as the same function is the toggle editing button. So if I click it, the pencil appears on top of the symbol. Then the cursor changes if you go here. Basically, when you toggle this on and off, you enable different options to create new entities, to modify entities, and to do other things. Okay, so I toggle the editing on again. You see the pencil, and the buttons with this yellow star are the ones to add new things. You see that you see also lots of them here. This is for creating new entities, new objects, new stuff inside PJS. So here I am creating a new point feature. And now your cursor becomes like a crosshair, okay? And I simply can go on top of this. I want to identify, left click, I click OK. And the point is added. I click a new one, okay, okay. And this is how I add new points. If you right click here and you go to the attribute table, now you see what I meant before. I have created 4 points and all of them are identified by a different ID, okay? Once I save this, probably they are going to be populated with a progressive number that I have to check. I don't remember, honestly. And also, if you select here in the attribute table, they are marked with a small cross inside. So you see exactly what you're looking at. I save them. If you toggle off the thing, okay, you can do it also inside the attribute table or from here. You switch off. It asks you, do you want to save the newly created entities? If I click save, the point shape file is updated, which is here. You see the timestamp is now 220. This is the modification that we performed just now. And now these things are staying, they're here. If we go again to the attribute table, there are 4 entities. Look at, I don't remember why we don't have a progressive number here.
Yeah, I mean, Ether, I mean, you can populate it if you want to show how to change the fields.
To populate, you can populate it by hand. If you toggle the editing, I can say, I think, type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. And that's it. We can save, and now our points have an ID. We might want to add more information. So if we want to add the field to the table after we have created the points, so the point shape file, we can still do that inside this attribute table. Every time you have to toggle on the editing mode, and here you have this button with this again small yellow star, new field, it's called. If you click new field, the name can be, I don't know, boulder type. Well, actually, the length of the field is a bit it's short, so you have like to condense what you meant. Can be like boulder, so you can name the boulders, for example. If you want to give a name to the boulders, as scientists do when they find new things on planets, you have to use the text string, okay? And here you can add a comment, the boulder name for reference. And then the length, you can adjust it as long as you want. I leave it like that for the moment, but you can put it like 20 characters. Okay, and now, for example, boulder 1, you can call it, how did they call it on Mars? Like Yogi. The second one is Boo Boo, and so on. The third one is, I don't know, Donald. The fourth one is Luca. And then when you save it, now all these boulders have a name, okay? This is as simple as it is. You can add as many folders, as many columns as you want, adding different types of information. For polylines, it's the same. We have to select it to toggle on the editing mode. You can also toggle the editing of 2 or 3 or more entities at a time. I don't suggest to do that because you might end up messing your project. So be sure to edit one thing at a time. But if you want, you can switch the editing of this and of this as well. And then you can edit it one or the other, just simply selecting here in your layer manager, adding new stuff. Yeah, this is number 5. This is, I don't know, Angelo, and so on. But it's better to work on an object at a time. Actually, before moving on to the polylines, you can also modify stuff. So you can not only create new stuff, but here you have a modify button that, for example, in here, it's the vertex editor. I can move my vertex, okay? So I can move my point if I want to change the position because it wasn't marked in a good way. The button close to the create new entity is just all the time to modify the entity. Or if I'm not happy with this entity, I can trash it. Okay, delete one feature. This is the trash button. You can trash it. And then you save. Same stuff with the polyline. Let's say that I want to start marking the contact between the central peak of Tsiolkovsky and this flat area, which is probably an impact melt. I select the polyline, select the pencil button. Here I can add a new polyline, and it's very simple. You add with your left click a vertex, then you click, you add the second vertex, you click, you add the third vertex, and so on and so forth. So here you start adding more click, click, click vertices to your polyline. And of course, this can be refined later on. You can come over your line work again and again and improve it. To stop, you have to click with your right mouse button, so the other mouse button. If you right click, this appears. You can provide the ID, for example, or you can leave it empty as you prefer. You click OK, and now you have your line work. And if you go to the attribute table again, you will see that I have a line which is created. And if I select it, I see the line in yellow, and all the nodes that create the polyline are highlighted in red. Okay. And again, I can create new fields and new things. I can modify the polyline again here in the modification button, always close to the one for creating new stuff. I can, for example, if we zoom in, I can select the vertex. If I hover the mouse on top of the polyline, I can select the vertex. I can move the vertex. I hover the mouse, left click, move the vertex. I can move also the vertices inside the polyline. I can move this one. I can move it back. I can move it. And then another thing you can do, if you hover your mouse, let me zoom in a bit. You see that the line is becoming red. If you just hover your mouse without clicking, just moving on top, it becomes highlighted in red. If you click with your left button, you can translate with the translation. You can shift the position of your line, you see? It's very convenient. If you hover your mouse, also a small cross appears in the door. You see, it becomes red when you go with your mouse on top. If you click, you can add a new node inside the polyline. So we have created a new node. If you go here, we can create a new one. A new one. So you can always modify the stuff that you want. Again, if I hover on top of the segment without going in the center, I will shift the segment, okay? It's a translation. I can add new vertices, or I can go to old vertices and drag them. It's very simple, actually. So this is the basic concepts of editing a line work. Of course, when you are happy, you save and you can continue, or you can stop the editing, and it always prompts you, you want to save it or you want to discard everything you did so far. I want to save it, and now it's saved. Polygons. Polygons are very similar, and of course they are polygons. Let's say I want to mark these small mounds emerging from the impact melt. So I will select polygons, toggle on the editing, go with the yellow star here, add the polygon features. I can zoom in a bit. Again, my mouse is across here, and once I left click here, I start creating the vertices of a polygon. Okay, and once I'm moving around, you see that more and more vertices are created of my polygon. I right click to close it, and here, since we added the new field in the attribute table, you remember, we had the GeoUnits field. Maybe we already know that this is part of the central peak material, for example. So we can give already a name to the unit. Peak material. And the ID can be 1. And see, now we added a character, so a specific attribute to the table. If we continue to do that, for example, I want to create other central peak material, like, I don't know, also this mount here, I have recognized that is probably part of a central peak, actually maybe not in this case, but okay, let's do with this. I will start adding a new polygon, yeah. I'm doing it in a very bad way, but just for you to know. Right click, again, central peak material, and this is number 2, although we don't need to put it.
Riccardo, there is a question
Yes.
on how to delete some of the nodes.
Yes, okay. The nodes, we can go to the line work again. So here we can save. By the way, you can modify the polygons in the same way. You see, you hover your mouse, you can move the vertices, you can add new vertices, or you can translate your segments. So these work exactly like the polylines. If I want to remove something, I have to select and then do, wait. Okay, that's how it's done. So you have to go to the selection mode, which is, I think, behind my zoom bar. Sorry for that. I don't see it. Okay. Okay, let's say I want to. Yes.
In the node editing mode, you are already in. If you go over the line.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the line, yeah.
Yeah, the line or whatever. Sorry, it wasn't on polygons. If you just go over the node, you left click on that, and then you press delete on your keyboard. Should work.
Yes, I think it works also with the polygon. That's what I tried to do.
You left click. Because... Yeah, and then press that. Should work. Doesn't work?
Yes, exactly. Sorry, okay. I was right clicking. Instead, it's left clicking. So if you want to delete a node, you left click on top of the node and you hit delete. Okay. Left click, delete. And the same is for the polylines. Of course, you have to toggle on the editing button.
Just to add something, because the reason why we couldn't remember it is because most of the time you don't need to do that. You don't need to delete the notes. You can just move them in the place you want the notes to be. So it's really, I mean, most of the time you are working, you don't really need to do so.
So it's the same for the polylines, of course, and also for the points. So if you have to go here, close to the editing button, if you want to remove this vertex here, left click, delete. Click, delete. Yeah, as Luca said, most of the time we are not deleting stuff. We are just moving around stuff like that. Because sometimes it's just a matter of adding complexity instead of removing complexity. But it's a good question, and it's good that we have recalled how that. Points is the same. By the way, now I'm not able to find my points anymore because I don't remember where they are. But if I right-click and I zoom to layer, I jump in the location of my points. Then I need simply to toggle the editing on, go to the modify button, click on top, and then delete. Click on top, delete. If I do it by mistake, once I toggle off the editing, it asks me, do you want to save the changes? I say no, don't save. So I get back my points, okay? So if I repeat again, if I remove by chance, by mistake, some objects that I don't want, okay, I simply toggle off the editing and don't save the modifications. And then they are back on. Okay?
Riccardo, there is a question that
yes.
Could you show again how to, because Francesco Gallo was asking how to add string labels to points or features. I believe
Yes.
Because he can only add the numbers, because probably he created the field as a number and not as a...
You can open attribute table.
So
okay, you have to be
again.
in editing mode. If not, you cannot add anything. So you have to toggle on the editing either here, or with the right click, and editing is always the same function spread over the QGIS. You toggle on, you go on the right until here, new field, or you hit Ctrl plus W, and you give a name to the field that you want. I don't know, for example, notes. And if I want to type a text inside, I have to go here, type, text string. The length has to be adjusted according to how much you want to write. I can also add, I don't know, 100 characters, okay? And then here I can add a note, like a very nice big folder with panel crystals of an orthosite, okay? Boom. And now our notes is stored inside this specific point. Save. So I will show you again. Depending on what you want to do, you can create a new field. You have to toggle on the editing, go here, add a new column. And let's say I want to create notes again, because I am doing it with the double types of notes. And then I go here, type text. If you want to type text, if you want to add numbers for, I don't know, identifiers, or you want to calculate the area or the perimeter or other characters like coordinates, you have to, of course, put like a decimal number or integer. That depends on your needs. I will put text again. And it says, already you have one notes field. So it doesn't do that. Okay, create a new one, notes v2. I leave it integer because I am doing it by mistake. And I want to type a note, but it doesn't accept it because it's an integer. It wants a number, not the text. So how to do the deletion of this column? Because it's a wrong column. I put some values that are wrong inside. I have formatted the column in the wrong way. I want to type text, and instead here it wants just numbers. you have to go to the button just close to the create new column on the right. It's delete field, delete column. If I click it, I am prompted to a list of all the columns that I have in my attribute table. So you have the ID column, the boulder column, the notes column, and the notes v2 column. I simply need to select the column that I want to delete. I click OK, and the column is gone. Okay. So again, you go here, you get the list. If I want to delete the 3 of them, I can delete as many as I want. I simply select the one that I want to delete and I hit OK, and the column is done. Gone away. Save. And here we are. Okay, now that we have seen, let's say, the basics of the editing for lines, polygons, and
Riccardo, could
yes.
you quickly, there was a question, could you quickly show again how to delete one point or just one node out
Yes.
of a polyline, just quickly?
Okay, you have to toggle on the editing. Okay, so for example, I want to delete this node here of this polyline, okay, because I don't like it. I go to the polyline, I choose editing. So now I can modify it. Then I have to go here, close to the creation tool. It's the modification tool. It's basically a line with a, I think it's a hammer and then like a screwdriver. And you click it. Then you hover your mouse to the point you want to delete. You left click. And then you hit delete. So if you left click, you can move it around. Yeah. But if you also hit delete, it's gone. Okay, I will do it one more time. You click, you can move it around if you want to place it in different positions. But if I want to delete it, I hit delete on my keyboard and it's done. Or I can go here, probably, yes, to the trash folder. No, and now this is deleting the whole polyline. So to delete a single point, we have to use the keyboard basically. Okay, for the Mac, you have just to hit backspace on the top left, top right. And for Windows, I think you have to use the cancel or delete button. So left click, backspace, or delete. And then you save. Okay, I think we can switch to the advanced editing tools, right, Luca?
Yeah, I believe so. How do we want to proceed? I was thinking, how much time do we have till the
Let me
end?
check.
Just because
I think we have 1 hour, and then at 3:30 to 4 there is the break. Riccardo, am I correct?
Yes, let me check, but yes, we have 1 hour left.
Okay, so I believe, Riccardo, maybe the best option is to start a demo mapping. What do you think? And while we do the mapping, we need we show new tools, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Because so I believe in 1 hour we will not be able to address everything.
So I think, Luca, now it's going to the good moment to introduce MAPPY, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Share my screen.
I will just show the plugin manager, and then you can share the screen.
Great.
So what we have seen so far is the very basic of QGIS, but QGIS and also other GIS systems are very, very powerful because they are modular. You can attach different plugins and different modules to the software. And QGIS in particular, it's very nice because it's open source. And if you use Python, you can write your own plugins to add specific dedicated functions that you need for QGIS. And these plugins are stored in a plugin manager, not only there, but mainly there. If you go here, up to plugins, you can open manage and install plugins. And oops, you will have a new window opening. This is basically a repository let's say, a store of different plugins with different functions for QGIS. Okay, and for, let's say, making our life easy with mapping, Luca has actually created a plugin to perform all this mapping that we have done before in a very easy way. Very easy, straightforward, without the annoying of creating new features, new vectors, new stuff for saving the project. You will see it later. Now we need to install that plugin. So I will ask all of you to open the plugin manager. So go to plugin and manage and install plugins. You have a search bar here. There are many ways to install the plugins, but we need to go to settings before here. And to switch on this option, show also experimental plugins. You have to put the check mark here because the plugin of Luca is experimental, but it works very, very nicely. And once you've done that, you can go again to all plugins. So again, open the plugin manager here, manage and install plugins. Go to settings here below, and go and check mark the show also experimental plugins. If you put the check here, then you can go back to the first page, and then you can type the name of the plugin that you need. By the way, if you just select the plugins here, you will get on the right side of the window a description of what the plugin does, some references, a link to the home page of the plugin for description, the GitHub code, everything else. And you can really look for anything. There's lots of things inside here. You see how many plugins you have for doing a lot of things. The one Luca created is called MAPPY. So you can type MAPPY here. This is the description of the plugin. And to install a plugin all the time, not only this time, but with any plugin that you need from the plugin manager, you simply go here at the bottom right and you click install plugin or install experimental plugin in this case. If I click, now the plugin is successfully installed. And then now it created, for example, a new window in my interface and new buttons here at the top, you see? If for some reason I don't want a plugin anymore, or I want to uninstall it for any reason, you simply go to here, uninstall plugin, and you can remove the plugin. Yes, I want to remove it. And then the plugin is gone. So it's a very easy and convenient way to add or remove functions to QGIS. So again, one last time, plugins, manage and install plugins. You have to go to settings, switch on, show also experimental plugins, then type MAPPY here, and then install MAPPY. Click, and MAPPY is installed. Then you can close this plugin manager, and you see it added new functions here, 3 buttons, and also a new interface here, which is a bit, let's say, occupying our mapping space, but you don't have to have it all the time. And now I think I can pass to Luca, and I will monitor the questions in case of need, okay?
Okay, Riccardo, thank you. I will share my screen. Which one? This one, I believe. So, okay, I've been trying to following what Riccardo showed you. Just to be clear, now we are gonna do.
By the way, Luca, I didn't introduce the location because I don't want to spoil the next day's activities. So
no, it's okay, but
of course
maybe
it's an indicator, you know. This
yeah,
is what
okay.
we need to.
Maybe if you want, I don't know, just to give some reference while I do some mapping, feel free. Okay, what we are going to do is very similar to what you are going to do next days on the different mapping exercise. So pay attention, and we will try to be as clear as possible. And we know it's not super easy, but let's hope for the best. So, okay, I followed through what Riccardo showed you. I'm gonna dismiss some of those layers. We are not gonna use them because I want you to see everything, let's say, from the very beginning. So I will remove those layers, so the point, polyline, polygons, and also the Sikorsky map that I also loaded, like Riccardo did. We just right-click, remove layer. So I select the layers I want to remove, right-click, remove layer. Remove 6 legend entries, yes, okay. So I end up with this one, which might be my base map that I'm gonna use to do the mapping, and nothing else. So the next step is something that you are not going to do next days because Riccardo and Angelo are already prepared for you. Let's say the base vector files, you just need to populate them. You will just need to draw the features you need, but you won't need to create them from scratch. But just so that you can see it, how it works, I will demonstrate it. I will open up a new panel that we still doesn't have, which is the processing toolbox panel. So again, I right-click with my mouse on an empty space in the toolbar. I look for the processing toolbox panel, and here are collected all the algorithms that QGIS can run. So there are algorithms for vector geometry, some other for the creation, the management, the modification of raster files, and so on. There is also you should find also MAPPY here. And just to be really quick, we can use MAPPY itself to create all the layers we need to do the mapping. We will do that only this time, not during the next day's mapping, I believe. Anyway, if you start the mapping on your own project, you might want to maybe use this tool here. I prepared the quick mapping project setup, which will create for you really quickly a setup that then we can use to perform the mapping. You just have to give a name of your mapping project. So for example, my demo mapping, I will call it something like this. You need to set the projection because it will create some vector files, and you need to know which projection you want to use. You can keep everything. You might want to change the folder to store the project in. Save to a directory. I go look for, as Riccardo said before, just use one directory for everything, or it will be a kind of a mess. There are maybe some getting on how to access process toolbar. I can show it again. Okay, so I select the directory. I will save my project again here, and I can just press run. Okay, and then I close this dialog. So you will see that your project has now been saved as a my demo mapping. Indeed, if we go here, the trafficability Sikorsky final release. Now we have my demo mapping. It created a folder for you with my demo mapping QGIS project and a vector folder already generated for you. So there was how to access the process toolbar. So it's not a toolbar we want this processing toolbox. You can open it by right-clicking with your mouse in any place that is empty of the other toolbar. So like here, for example, I right-click here, and you see panels and you see toolbars. We want to open a new panel that is processing toolbox panel. So now I press it, it disappears. I can open it up again, processing toolbox panel. Okay, so
there is also other ways, sorry to interject, Luca, to do it very quickly. So for example, one is to click on this button here. I'm marking in red.
Okay.
The other one is to go here to processing, and if you open it, the drop-down menu, you get the possibility to switch on the processing toolbox.
Yeah,
so you see there are multiple ways to achieve the same results in QGIS.
Yeah, keep that in mind, and if you look online, you might find a different way of doing the same thing. The coordinate system info, I will do it again once. Quick mapping project setup, and of course, name of your project, the folder where to store your project. And here, project reference system, you have to choose one, a valid one. And the best way is to just choose the project CRS, which should be this one, because if the first data you imported was I believe the DTM we imported as a first thing, it should be already in simple cylindrical mode. And then just run. And as you run it, it will create the files for you. The project file might be, it might be a way to jumpstart a project. I suggest you to create everything from scratch, all your layers you need. This was created especially for the winter school, where we need to do to be quick as possible to create everything. So let's see what created. So you should have 3 new layers. 2 are called source indicators and source contacts, and will be the 2 that we will be mostly editing. There is also one that is linear features that might be handy. For example, if you are mapping some fractures, some faults, or anything that is linear, that is not geological contacts. And I believe we can already start to do some mapping. So the big point here, I don't know if you want to say just maybe some wording, Riccardo, because we need to understand what I'm referring to in different parts of this crater.
So you will see later on this week that, of course, we are inside an impact crater. This is Tsiolkovsky crater. It's located on the far side of the moon. And the major features that you encounter inside impact craters, of course, is the shape of the crater itself. Which is marked by a rim that is identifying the interior of the crater by the outside. And inside the crater, you will have like some features like these, some infilling, which is very, very smooth, of different color, and it's probably related to some impact melt or some marble basalt infilling of the crater, and then a central peak, which is created for craters that are larger than around 10 kilometers, more or less. And sometimes you see also some hammocky material, which is related to the substratum before the infilling of this basaltic material. So this is basically the main rough units. Sometimes you have some streams of from melt pools that are created after the impact. That, small impact craters scattered all around, and this type of things. So these are the basic shapes that you will see today. It's not mandatory that you know the geology of the place. Today, it's just a matter of knowing how to operate in the QGIS. You will get more in depth into the topics the next days. Today is really important for you to be able to gather how to operate the system. But these are the basics.
There was a question if we can create a JPEG package from layers already created, and of course, yes. So for example, if you have 3 layers created here, the easiest way is that you select them and you say export, save features as, and you say GeoPackage, and you save everything in just one GeoPackage. If the GeoPackage already exists, it's totally possible to put them together. But anyway, let's jumpstart to. So I will use simple names here. So you see there is a dark material at the very center of the crater, and there is the central peak, which is lighter in color. So my final map, let's have a look at the very final map that Gloria put together. Very quickly, I load it. So the final result is something like this. So we have polygons. Each polygon is just one specific unit. So we have here in the map, we have central peak, then another unit that is called hammocky material, which is this one that Riccardo was showing you before. Then we have smooth material at the very center, and then some other details of the scarps, let's say with steep scarps and inner slope, etc. So basically what we want to do is replicate this same map at a simpler level, but we are going to do exactly this. I will just remove the map, and to do so, I will start tracing some contacts. So each time I trace a contact, I must think that that contact is used to separate different units. So again, you select source contacts, you enable editing, so toggle editing. You can do it from here. You can right click and then toggle editing. Again, there is 100 ways of doing this. I will enable it from here and start creating contacts. So the first one I will create, and I would suggest you to do the same, to follow along, is a very simple one. And look how sloppy I am at this moment. I'm not interested in being more precise, because you can always clean up your work later. And just look at this. When you close your lines, given at the very end we will generating polygons, be sure the two lines cross each other, like so. And you see if they cross, you have this green cross that tells you that the two lines crossed. So right click, and you cannot see because it's on the screen. Here it is. So it opens up these future attributes, where there is a FID, that is future ID, that will be automatically generated this time, and a field that I already prepared for you, which is a string field, so for characters. I call it certainty, and you can, for example, use it to say how much certain you are of a contact. So, for example, in this case, I'm pretty sure the contact is more or less right, because it is well visible. As I'm happy, I press OK. I created my first line. Okay, you see the line is not very visible, but you already know what to do. You know that you can go on the layers panel, select the source contacts layer, right click, properties, so we can add more color, because I really don't like this color. Something like this one is better. I will increase also the width to maybe 1. Okay, so now we can see this first unit. So we basically traced the boundary of the central peak unit. Don't try to be too precise at this moment, because there is always time to improve the lines. And but at this moment we are trying to understand the basic elements. So another basic element is this dark area here, which Riccardo was referring to as the impact melt, I believe. We can create a new line. So we just go ahead, toggle editing, be sure to have it enabled, and we can create a new line to trace the boundary between this darkish area and the surrounding, right? At the very end, when you have to stop tracing your line, be sure to cross the two lines. That's all you need to do. Also in the next days, right click, it opens up the futures attributes, how much certain we are. Maybe this time, just as a demo, I put in uncertain, because maybe I'm not so sure. Okay, so we have basically traced our first two lines. Let's trace another one, because, for example, we can recognize that this area here is what Riccardo called hammocky material. You will find out more on this next day. But anyway, I will just want to define a new area here. To do so, be sure to be in editing mode, etc. and I will trace a new limit here. For example, only in the MAPPY one. And look what I did here. Be sure to have your lines crossing, ending. Each line must end in a different, on itself or on a different line. Okay, so I want to identify this region here. So what I did was crossing this line once, and then at the very end crossing again here.
Luca, can you show very quickly how you move the project while editing? How you drag your project?
To do so, use the central wheel. If you click on the wheel, I mean, you need to have a mouse, right? But the central button of your mouse, let's say, or maybe also on the keyboard, you can click it, and so you can very quickly move. Instead, if you rotate the wheel, you will zoom in and zoom out. I believe that was the question, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so maybe we trace the last unit, which is, we could call it the rim. And very quickly, again, don't bother going to the details now. You will have time to do so next days on the actual mapping. And again, double check, you cross each line. So now I set it as a certain line because I'm happy with it. I'm pretty sure it's there. And now I'm happy with what I did. I can disable editing. And as I do that, you see, stop editing. Do you want to save the changes to the layers source content? And remember to do save or you will lose your changes. And we have the first piece that is needed for the mapping. Okay, I tried to go slower, modifying what we are looking at because
there are quite a few questions of people not being able to change their language. So you may want to show it one more time.
Sorry, what, Riccardo?
How to switch language.
Was that under?
I think it's
properties.
Under properties.
General.
No, not there. It's QGIS properties, but on Mac are located on a different place. So maybe
options, settings,
options.
Yeah. And
Settings,
if you are looking for something, maybe like so, system. No plugin setting. No, not here. Riccardo, you did it.
Yes, general. It's the first button. Settings, options.
I was in the right place. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, and then you have to override system locale. You have to do that, and then go up and choose English as the first language.
I will not do it. I mean, you probably have to restart QGIS after.
You have to restart afterwards.
So be sure then to have everything saved. Okay. So we basically draw all our unit. For example, I will just add another example. I see here I got some hammocky materials. I will start editing source contacts. I will add a new feature. I will draw a new line here. And look what happens. Maybe
just a suggestion: go slower because the screen is moving too fast.
I'm trying, but I'm doing it as it's so natural to move quickly, but I will try. So let's say one thing. Last example. We want to trace this contact here, right? Let's say that maybe what happens is that one part of this contact here is clear. So I would like to give it a certain attribute. And maybe the second part, maybe this part here is not so clear. So you don't really know if it passes here, a little bit on top or exactly where. So we will draw two different lines for that, exactly as we did before. So the first one that maybe ends here. So right click, for which I will set it as a certain. And maybe a second one, I just need to be sure to cross the line. Sometimes it's not so easy, but maybe the second part is not so certain. So I will mark it as uncertain. Okay, so we created all those lines. Remember to save. So save layer edits, or anyway, toggle editing and press save. Then what I want to show you is that we created several features. So I open up the attribute table. So we have some that are certain, some that are not so certain. You see, if you click on each line, you will be able to select each, so you know which one is which. But a better way to know which one is which is to use styling. So here we go in the layers, we select the layer we want to edit. So choose contacts, right click, under properties. Again, we basically open the layer properties dialog, sorry. Under symbology, now you have, you see here, you have this menu with different options, and typically is single symbol, so it just uses one symbol for any kind of feature, but we can also set categorized, and it will ask you on which value you want to perform the categories. We want to use certainty. You want to use certainty, and we can press classify. You see, we create additional symbol for one for certain, one for uncertain. So probably the best way, maybe I don't want to use this symbol. Maybe I don't want to for the, let's say, the certain one. I can change it. So maybe I can use a red line, and for uncertain, I can still use a red line, but I want it to be a dashed line. So I can select the dash and then change color. I mean, you can do whatever order you prefer. Anyway, if I press OK, you see now that you will have, sorry.
Luca, can you show again how to find all the source contacts, source indicators, unit name layers? I think some people miss the part of the quick mapping project setup. So you have to enable the processing toolbox with the button at the top, like that one. Yeah. Then you scroll down, you go to MAPPY here, and then you have to do quick mapping project setup. If you double click, you select the correct projection here, which is the second option, the project CRS. You choose the name of the map, and then you choose where to save the project with this button here, the one I'm marking with an arrow. And then if you click run, then a new package is created with inside source contacts, source indicators, and so on.
Okay, Riccardo, sorry, I muted myself, I believe, and I wasn't able to come back, so I tried to follow. Can you hear me, right?
Yes. Can you also show how to symbolize again the source contacts?
Yeah. So, I mean, that was the quick way to create the layer, but Riccardo before showed you how to create layer by yourself if you want. So you can just go there and use new package layer, create each layer, and so on. To style them, you just select the layer you want to style, you right click on that, and you go under properties. You have this dialog, you find symbology, And you have different options for the symbology to apply. One is no symbol. Then you have single symbol, which is the default. And you can use categorized or rule. I mean, there are different ways. You have to look up in the manual or just try them out because they are understandable. Here I used categorized. I specified which field here in the value option, which field to use. In this case, the certainty. And then I just pressed classify here. And classify created for me different entities. So composed of one value and the legend. I can also change the legend if I want. Maybe I want to be more accurate, like so. So this value will be mapped to this symbol. And to edit the symbol, I can just go here and double click on that, on the symbol. And I can use the presets. There are several. Or I can just, let's say, use whatever it gives me, right? Okay, when I am happy, I press OK. And you end up with something like this. So you have contact which you are not really sure to be able to detect them correctly, because there are probably some very not very visible contacts. You may mark them as uncertain contact, and this is true for whatever properties it really depends on the kind of mapping you're doing. So whatever properties, you can attach it to the contacts you're tracing, and then you can use it to style your own map. Okay. So this is the first part. Now we are gonna run MAPPY. So of course you have to have MAPPY installed. You open up this window. If it's not open, you can always look into panels, look for MAPPY panel and open it. You can also go in the MAPPY toolbar, that should be open here, and press this gear so you can open it. And what we need to do here is check that everything is fine for what we are gonna do. And we need to check the input. So we need to be sure that the layers containing the contacts is this one. So source contacts, that's fine. We need to choose the source indicators here, and you will see in a moment what they are. And we need to choose a unit field that is a field in the source indicators layers, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. I just want to...
just a quick reminder, It can happen when you create multiple files that MAPPY is not reading correctly source contacts, source indicators, and these types of things. So once you close, also if you fix this and you put this in the right position, so like this, so everything, every time on MAPPY must be in this configuration. Source contact, source indicators, unit name. It has always to be like that. If not, your map doesn't work. But if you close QGIS and you reopen it, sometimes MAPPY doesn't read it, let's say, promptly. So you need to check and adjust it accordingly. So
yeah, just double check. Yeah. Every time you run it, once in a while, just double check that everything is set up correctly, especially when you first start the project. So this is the setup, and we need to choose the output. You might want to choose a directory, and I mean, it's not really a directory here. It must end with GPKG, so geopackage. So this is the geopackage where MAPPY will try to write all the generated map, which will be called final map. It will also generate clean contacts, and you will see in a moment what they are. And that's basically all. You have several options, and you might want to try to, we might want to try to understand what they do in a moment. But as a first thing, I would like to try to run it. To run it, I go here. You see in the toolbar, there is a button that is called Recompute Map. So it says also pay attention to the config, because it might overwrite your data. But if I press it, you see we end up with a polygonal layer, which is called final map, which is this one. In a moment, we will see how it's made. And it also creates something that is called final contact. So let's go one thing just one thing at a time. It created a polygonal map for you. If you open up the attribute table, you see that there are FID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, exactly as the several regions you created. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 regions. So it's totally fine. But it's missing the unit name. So if I select it, you see, I select the different region. Now, one possibility is that you sit down here and you put in the unit name for each of the units, but don't do that. There is a better solution, which is to use the point layer called source indicator. So I bring this up a little bit over on top of the map. So MAPPY created the polygonal layers, but also created one point for each polygon you generated in the map. Now it's time to give the names to each unit. So let's start to do that. I select source indicators, which is a point layer here in the layers panel. I select source indicators. I enable editing, so toggle editing. Now, there are several ways to do that. I will do it from the attribute table because you already seen that. And if I press on each row, you see the corresponding point, it lights up. I would like to increase a little bit the size of the points so you can actually see it. Here we are. Now it's better. So if I select each row, you see the corresponding point will light up. Now I will give names to each unit. So the first one is the central peak. This one was the melting pool. Let's see the third one, how was called that? I can't remember.
It's a hammocky. The first one was probably impact melt for Marbazal. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The fourth one is also a hammocky. Never remember if it's with you or. And the last one is we will just call it, I don't know, Rim. Probably not really accurate, but that's not really important. Now, when we are happy, we gave the name at each unit. You can just save the layer, close this window if you don't want to keep it, disable editing, and that's all. At this point, if everything was left unchanged here in the configuration, you can just recompute the map. And you will see what happened. I will press it now. And now we have different colors for each unit. Let's see what happened. If you go on final map, so you have a central peak, which is this one. You have your hammocky materials here, right? You have the impact melt here, and let's say the unit rim here. If you want to change the colors, you can just, as always, go in the properties. You can find the legend here if you want to change the names to be more readable. And you can, of course, change the colors like so. Okay. Okay, I will show it again. I'm going to show it again after we do some changes to the map. So last point is the final contact layer. I want to show you that this layer is actually exactly the same as the source contacts. Let's see if I disable it. With the only difference that has been cleaned out of all overhangs of the lines. You see? This is the original source contact. If I disable it, so I'm displaying just final contacts, I have the cleaned out version of the contact. So you see here, they match perfectly, and everywhere else also. Okay. Why do we need this kind of this layer specifically? Is because when you finalize your map, you will want to put your final contacts on top of it, like so that you can express exactly where the contact is passing, and if the contact was, for example, certain or uncertain. What we can also do is go over source indicators. Again, open up the properties, go on the styling, and here we can do basically the same, use a categorized style, for example, based on the unit name. If I do classify, basically I have different colors, which are actually not matching, but different color for each point, so I know which unit. Or even better, under properties is something that we haven't shown you. There is a field, an option that is called labels. If you go over labels, you say single labels, and the value should be unit name. In this case, you press OK. You will see that it will add for you the labels for each point. Now, Riccardo, do you think it's clear enough? Give me
yes.
Give me feedback if
I have. To me, it's clear enough. Maybe it's good to recap the whole process. So some people are missing how the points are generated. So maybe you want to modify the map or add for units, for example, the eject blanket outside. Something.
Exactly. So that was the next step, I believe.
Okay.
But I would like to tell to everyone in the, let's say, in the chat in Zoom, if they can give feedback, feel free. I mean, probably it's difficult to address everything, but I believe you can go back, on the recording and take some time to make it work if it doesn't at the first time. Now, why go into all the troubles of working in this way? This is basically because when it comes to editing or improving your map, this makes things really easier to manage. And I will show you an example. So now I'll disable final contacts. I don't care about them. They are just the final version that will be used to create the, let's say, to print your map, right? I'm interested in source indicators, not interested in the final map for now. And I'm interested in the source contacts. And now I want to change, for example, adding a new unit. What unit was you suggesting to add, Riccardo, for example? Source contacts, here they are. So I select source contacts. I toggle editing. I create a new feature. And for example, I see that I've got some more hammocky material here. Probably not really true, but anyway. I take care of crossing the lines at the very beginning, at the end. Press right, mouse button, certain, I'm for example, certain. I press OK. I see there a new line come out. Okay, now what happened? You see, we still don't have a point, source indicator point for this unit. So what you can do is you can add it by hand. So that will mean select source indicators, toggle editing, add a new point, click here and call it key. Press OK. And I've added a new point. This is one way. If I press save, I disable the editing. Now, look what happened if I recompute the map. This is my final map, the last version without the new unit. And if I do like so, I save also source contacts. I forgot to do so. I generate it again, and look what happens. I got a new unit. A new unit classified as hammocky, right? So these are the indicators with the names and the new polygon generated. The same apply if you want to improve your mapping. That's why I told you don't go crazy trying to create a very precise mapping now, because you will be able to improve it as soon as you have some time. Maybe it's better to first solve the geology you're looking at and then maybe go back and improve a little bit. So for example, this contact is clearly wrong. And as Riccardo have shown before, I will select source contact, toggle editing, enable vertex editing, and maybe I can start to improve it a little bit, like so, like so. Okay, so you can also always go back later and improve your mapping if you really need to. It's better to first understand what is going on in terms of geology. Okay, now I save it, I disable the editing. Now the map is still not updated, so if I open it, it's still like this, but if I press recompute map, now it's updated. Okay, so you can actually improve every time a little bit your map, create new contacts, create new units. So what happens, look at these options here in the MAPPY panel. One option is that auto add missing indicator points. That was why at the very beginning I didn't even create the points, and MAPPY created them for me just because he saw that it was missing. So for example, we will create a new unit. I will select source contacts again, toggle editing. Now, for example, I see one unit that for me is something different. For example, here, this unit here, like so. Rim strange unit, for example. No, this is a certain contact, sorry. I press OK. Now it creates a new unit, but I'm missing a point. What I can do is just save the layer, press recompute map, and you see that MAPPY automatically created a point here, but a point that is missing the description because of course MAPPY couldn't know which units I'm working with here. So I need to fill that in. To do so, I can just open the attribute table, not this one, sorry, the one with the points, source indicators, open attribute table. And you see that the last point is still null. I can, for example, edit this directly here. And maybe it is rim strange unit or something like that. I don't know. I press save. I toggle editing. And as soon as I'm happy, I can just recompute the map. So the original map is this one. I recompute. The color changes because now the color is this one, rim strange unit. And we can go ahead working like so. So there are other options. One is override output layers that most of the time you need to leave it enabled because every time it's recomputing from scratch the layer and saving them. The two layers, which are final map and final context. This one. So at the very end, you will disable source contacts. You don't use them, but you keep them stored for yourself. And this is basically your map. And you see here we added some details. And if we wanted, we can go ahead. I will do that so you can see it one more time. I disable the final map. I enable the source contact, disable the final contacts. That's a little bit tricky at the beginning, but you get used soon. You select source contact, you enable the editing, and maybe I want to improve my mapping here and there, possibly in the central peak, which is very badly mapped. I can do something like this to improve it. Okay, move nodes, create new nodes. Here we are, maybe one more here. I mean, there are many different ways to improve it, but this works fine, I believe, especially if you are at the beginning.
Luca, today we can make maybe the coffee break a bit shorter so we can finish what you plan to show.
Okay, Angelo. Yeah, but I believe more or less, Riccardo, correct me if
I
I'm
think
wrong.
I'm just looking at our schedule.
We covered mostly the most important stuff, I believe.
Yes. Did you show the snapping already? I don't think so.
No, we
The
can
only
show
thing
it.
we are lacking, basically, is
Yeah. So
we will
I
install
just
different
generate
plugins
again the
enabled.
final map. Here I improved the contact. So if I generate it again, now you see that it changed, and I've got also my final contacts. Clear it without any overlap. So maybe let me think. Snapping toolbar. So one thing is that when you work freehand like so, it might be useful. It's not always needed, but especially with MAPPY, it's not needed because you see that you just need to cross over each line. But if you want to be really precise, and you might want to enable snapping. Let's see how it works. If I'm not wrong, I will enable source contacts. Yeah, here, toggle editing, and I will create just a couple of random lines just to show you. So for example, I add a new line here, and I want to add another line, but it must end exactly at this point. So you either cross the two lines, but it is not always possible. I mean, MAPPY takes care of removing the dangling ends, but sometimes you don't want to use MAPPY, so you might create a new one. And you see that if you enable this enable snapping tool, which is enabled now. Okay, let me show you where I get it from. Right click again, look for toolbars. Under toolbars, you can find snapping toolbar. So right click, snapping toolbar, I remove it, right click, snapping toolbar. And you can disable this little magnet here, this red magnet, you can enable it or disable. When it's enabled, the lines you trace, the points, or better, the vertices of the lines will be automatically snapped together. So you see, if I cross the last point here, a little magenta square come out, and I can just click on that, and then basically it will match the two lines perfectly.
Luca, we have an interesting question, actually, which is a more philosophical, but nonetheless relevant. So is there any particular advantage of using polylines instead of polygons? And one of the answers is that geologists are working on contacts between one unit and another. But
one of the advantages that is more clear, I mean, there are advantages that are maybe not so clear and not so easy to understand, but one of them is that typically when you trace contacts, for example, I show you the example that you might want to give different attributes to the same contact. If you work with polygons, basically it's impossible for you to give a different attributes for the contacts because it will be just the boundary of the polygons. No, it's not clear. It's not the clearest one, possibly. I believe a big point is that if you work with polygons, you must pay a lot of attention when you do edit the polygons. Because if you create a hole in the polygons, you don't match the two nearby polygons exactly, you end up with data which is not perfect. Might be good for printing your map, but it's very easy. You end up with a lot of little holes, overlapping polygons, which are basically impossible to find them by eye. So this is a way that grants you that whatever you generate at the very end, which is again a polygon layer, is perfectly sound.
And this has an actual impact because if you are creating maps that do not have gaps small holes that you don't see by naked eye, even zooming in a lot. If the borders, the vertices, the segments match perfectly and are topologically corrected, you end up in not making mistakes if you have to do calculations or relations between polygons. If you're editing a polygon, you also have to edit its neighbors, and not so easy to do that, or it's more time consuming. But if you have a topologically correct map, you are sure that also calculations that you do inside the polygons, like areas, I don't know, overlaps, or anything you need, are good. If you have gaps, you may end up in really screwing your work. So using this approach will save you a lot of time if you're going to go over and over and refine your map.
Let me say again, here I show you that you can create, for example, this contact. It can be half certain, half uncertain. So the way you will do that, if you will be working with polygons, will be that you just draw your map, and then at the end you create a duplication of all the lines of your contacts from the polygons, and then you have to say which one. So go back and edit which line is certain, which one is not, and sometimes you will need to also cut the line, right? So the contacts are not just the boundary of the polygons, but maybe some parts, one or two different lines, for example, with different attributes, which might be important to put them down while you are mapping and not wait at the end, because there is no way to create a polygonal map that maybe you want to refine later and also keep in sync the contacts with that polygonal line, I believe. So there is another question. If you snap them together, I believe that it will create two different lines, and you can check it by yourself, looking in the attribute table. Just try create one and then another one. It will create two different lines.
Actually, if you snap together two lines, it's basically they are just, let's say,
we can verify
sharing a point, but they are not one entity. They remain two entities. It's just that they are just matching the exact vertex or the exact segment, but they are two separated objects. You have to merge them with a different procedure.
So here I created one line here, another one here, and you see when I go over, I got enabled the vertex tool. When I go over the line, you see the nodes and the segments just of this line. So this is one line, this is another line, and those are again other lines. You can join them together. There are ways to do so, but I mean, if you want to explore what you can do, have a look at this toolbar, which is called the Advanced Digitizing Toolbar, which might be very useful. And I show you, for example, there is this tool which is super useful for geological mapping, which is called Reshape Future. I show you how it works because it's nice. So I disable final contacts. I select my source contacts here. Let's say I want to change a little bit this contact because it was wrong. I can just select this tool, Reshape Future, and do something like this. Look, I change it, improve it. It didn't work like so. I believe it should work. No, maybe I got it wrong. Should be this one. Yeah, possibly. I cannot remember how it works, probably. Maybe Riccardo, can you remember it, how it was working?
Sorry, I was looking at the question.
Now it works. For example, if I want to reshape just a portion of a line, instead of going there with click, 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 moving each vertex, I can, for example, do like so. I select this tool here, which is how it's called, Reshape Futures, and then I trace a new line. Just pay attention, you have to cross each the line 2 different times. Sometimes it works, sometimes not. This one was working, yeah. And you see it modify the line, reshaping it as you did. But I'm not sure why it's sometimes working, sometimes not. Let's try again here. Like for example, maybe you don't have to do too much. No.
Luca, after this, can you also show again how to assign the colors to the units of the final map?
Okay, it wasn't working as I expected.
symbology.
Assign the color to the final map. So the colors are automatically assigned when you run this tool, but of course, maybe you don't like them. So you can just open the final map, be sure it's updated. Just I want to be sure. Here we are. We change a little bit the contacts. And you right click your mouse button, you go over properties, you right click on the layer, of course, you go in the properties, you go in symbology, and here you should already see that you have those value legend values, basically, which is the mapping between the value you have in the attribute table and the legend that will be shown. So you can actually change the legend because maybe you want to use something like this, and like this. And then here, under symbol, you have the different colors. You can double click on them. If you double click, you can choose different symbols. For example, you can also use hashed pattern and stuff like that. For special features you want to overlay, for example. And if you go also here in the layers, you have the different colors. You can just go from here, so you don't have to open other dialogues. You go from here, and maybe you don't like the color. Maybe you want it green, you can choose it to make it green. Okay. But what happens is that it will change it basically here. Just the unit here. Here we are.